Yo, look at those horses!
Good morning and thank you for tuning in to ANN's Morning News. I'm Matt Stahl alongside Andrew Masood, reporting to you live from our wonderful studio in New Jersey. Today we have a series of interesting stories to bring to you guys.
Today we will be joined by Derek Pensabeni, our on-site reporter with stories from Independence Hall in Philadelphia, as well as Washington's Crossing in Princeton. In addition, we'll be joined by a couple guests such as Benjamin Franklin, Thomas Paine, and George Washington himself.
But first, we have Nathan Hale, an American soldier, on the phone across studio with Derek. Derek?
Matt, I am on the phone with Nathan Hale, who has just left a meeting with General George Washington of the Continental Army. Now Nathan, I've got to ask, are the rumors of your newly assumed position of captain true for you?
I'm not in a position to speak on that.
But it would not be uncommon for such a thing to happen, for you and General Washington are very close friends.
I have not the slightest clue of what you're talking about. Me and George are nothing but small acquaintances, and we keep our political views aside from our friendship.
Coming from the house of General Washington makes me question, what were you doing there if you denied meeting with him?
No, you misunderstood. I said I wasn't meeting with Washington about my newly assumed position of captain. I mean, I don't actually have a position of captain, but that's what you said, so I'm telling you that I'm not a captain and that me and Washington are just friends.
Sounds suspicious. General Washington is a busy man, especially in the time of the Revolution. Seems unreasonable for him to take a few hours out of his day to talk gossip over tea and biscuits.
Suspicious? Who's suspicious? You're suspicious for calling me suspicious. What, are you a spy or something?
Who said anything about spies? Nathan, do you happen to know anything about espionage in the Continental Army?
Spell espionage.
E-S-P-I...
What's that? Dinner's ready. Oh, sorry, gotta go. Dinner's ready.
A very strange interview from the man himself, Nathan Hale. And we'll keep up with the inside scoop on Nathan Hale in the next following months, once new information reaches us. Hang in there, buddy. Back to you, Matt.
Thank you for that rousing interview from Continental Army soldier Nathan Hale. Our next speaker that we have is our renowned author of the year, Thomas Paine. Paine is here to talk about his newly written pamphlet, Common Sense. In his piece, he talks about the need for the United States to unite under one body against the British, and the need for people devoted to the cause of the Revolution. Now to you, Derek.
Thanks, Matt. Common Sense is that new controversial work of literature that everyone is talking about, and here we have the brave man who wrote it, Thomas Paine. Now, Thomas, what's your motive behind this book, or pamphlet, as most call it?
I just think that people need to look at the situation we're all in, a situation of oppression from our totalitarian government that has control of our markets, our laws, and most importantly, our liberty. The British are using us, and we as the people have been used for far too long. No longer shall the people be taxed without representation. No longer shall the people fear a redcoat. No longer shall a man who sits on the throne thousands of miles away tell me what to do. It's time to open our eyes, recognize the oppression, and free ourselves from the hand of Great Britain. That is what the pamphlet is all about.
What are a few instances of oppression that you have encountered in your lifetime living in the colonies?
There are plenty of laws and instances to be named in just the past 10 years. The Tea Act of 1773, the Townshend Acts of 1767, the Intolerable Acts of 1774, and the Boston Massacre of 1770. The list goes on, Derek, and we as people need to recognize this list of ongoing oppression, and we will then find ourselves on the pursuit of true happiness.
Now, Thomas, your pamphlet is considered to be extremely controversial, so controversial that when you first published it, you remain anonymous as the author. What made you decide to come out and label your name on this slap-to-the-face book to the British?
Well, someone has to be the face for the people, for the revolution, and I realize how cowardly it is to write something that stirs up so many people and hide out in the shadows. So I decided to own up to my work and put my name as the author.
Hey, pal, you look pretty tense. Relax there. There's no need to be so stiff. You know what? Here, let me give you a massage. Your tenseness leads me to ask, if you are worried about the punishment from the British government in which you single-handedly called out.
Not so much worried, for what has been done has been done. They can hang me, send me to the gallows, and forget my name, but the pamphlet cannot be erased or forgotten, and that's what ultimately matters. I knew I risked death the moment I began writing it, as do all of the revolutionaries who carry out their rebellious acts, but none of that matters now that the word of the pamphlet has reached thousands.
Consider yourself a true activist of the revolution for the colonists?
Indeed I do, especially after releasing my pamphlet. I have a voice that demands to be heard louder than the oppression that rings in the ears of the people. For this, I consider myself to be an extremist in the cause for revolution and for the people.
How much change of heart can your pamphlet bring to the colonists on the idea of a full-blown revolution in Great Britain?
Well, no one can say for sure, not even myself as the author, but it's hopeful to gain as much support as possible, rally our troops, and prepare for war.
Any last things to say to the viewers, Thomas?
Yes, if you haven't already done so, go out and buy my pamphlet, read it thoroughly, and join the revolution. Maybe we can all come to a common ground and see that the revolution makes sense.
Alright, well, you heard it from the man himself. Common Sense, written by Thomas Paine, is in stores all across the country, so get out there and join the revolution. Back to you guys in the studio.
Thank you. This is Justin. We have a special live report with Derek in Philadelphia, Pennsylvania. Supposedly one of the most important documents to ever grace this continent is being signed right now in Philadelphia. So here's Derek.
We're standing out here next to Independence Hall, where there's an insane document being signed right now. We have no idea what's going on in there. We're trying to figure it out. Maybe some crazy stuff. We're gonna eventually, hopefully, catch up with some people and figure out what's going on inside Independence Hall right now.
Yo, is that Ben?
Hold on. Can we get an interview?
Where, here?
Here? Is this alright? Wait, that's like, you just signed the Declaration of Independence, right? Yeah. Alright, well, can we get an interview?
Sure. Where do you want?
I don't know, we'll find somewhere. We're gonna catch up with you in a minute. We're gonna get an interview with Ben Franklin.
Alright, make it quick.
We are here in this nice little garden, and we're here with Ben. We're finally getting ready to do our interview. Now, Ben, you got to tell us what happened in the Declaration of Independence and the signing in Independence Hall.
Well, we, the members of the Continental Congress, have been debating the future of the colonies for quite some time now. It was nearly split on the floor, half for independence and half for loyalty to the British. And in the end, we knew we must pick one before it was too late.
So what was written on the lengthy document?
Well, basically, it outlines every reason and clause we feel the need to declare independence, resolves the problem we had before, and talks about new plans for the government in the future. Specifically, it lists the freedoms in which we believe every man deserves as a person, in the land of opportunity where no one can be held back by the law. That is the general message that embodies the declaration that was signed today.
Now, Ben, do you believe in everything that was written on the document?
Being the prime editor and the writer of the Declaration myself, I think it's pretty safe to assume that I'm a firm believer of the document's message.
Now, was there anyone who didn't sign the document?
Well, there was one guy, a delegate from Pennsylvania, named John Dickinson, a Pennsylvania farmer who predicted war with Britain will incite war with the French and the Spanish, which is completely ridiculous. He is nothing but a coward, afraid to take a chance, and he'll see what the Declaration will bring to these great people.
Well, Ben, I know that you signed the document, but was there any hesitation in your mind when you first had the pen in your hand in front of the paper?
A man must stick behind his ideas in the best and the worst of times, otherwise he's a coward, and I'm a firm believer in that. Not a doubt came across my mind whether to sign the document or not. I knew this was the only logical decision and signed impulsively.
Now, did you attempt to write your name in small in hopes that being less obvious in the document?
I do not care if His Majesty recognizes my signature upon the document or not, as long as he recognizes the message of the document. Size of a signature is not as important to me as to John Hancock, obviously, who signed his name the biggest.
Now, Ben, I gotta ask, why did John Hancock sign his name the biggest?
He wanted to personally let the king know that he was one of the delegates that signed the document. It's almost taunt in a sense, for he almost saying that he wants the king to know that he signed it and he's not afraid to stand by it. I personally think it's a bold move, but I applaud for it.
Now, Ben, this may seem a weird question, but the fans asked, do you think that a hot dog is a sandwich?
When you say hot dog, you mean like a hot dog?
Never mind. Now, Ben, does the signing of the document put the colonists in a dangerous position?
Well, danger is nothing new to the colonists, obviously, especially in this past decade of harsh and unfair treatment from Britain. Stepping slightly out of line in the eyes of the Redcoats has always received some type of punishment. And this is evident in many instances, such as the Boston Massacre, the Intolerable Acts, etc. Now, does this add any new danger to the colonists? Of course it does. But that's what's at risk, and that's what independence is all about. We wouldn't have signed the document if we didn't know what was best for the people.
Do you think that war and hardship is really what's best for the colonies?
I really do. The short-term effects of war may seem drastic, but they're nothing compared to the long-term effects of abusive treatment that the people receive every day from the British government.
Now, do you think independence from such a strong nation, the same who drove the Spanish and the French out of the same continent, is realistic in our case? Do you think we could win?
I think you underestimate the power of the colonists. You have to remember that these colonists are driven to achieve independence, and the force is strong enough for them to give it all back on the battlefield. You're also forgetting the French and Indian War, in which Great Britain made soldiers out of plenty colonists, especially the great General George Washington, And the biggest positive we have as the colonists is the home field advantage, for we know the land better than anyone, especially Britain.
Now, if successful in achieving full independence from Great Britain, how will the document, the Declaration of Independence, serve in our country?
Well, we won't know until we get there, obviously. Got to take everything one step at a time, but it's hopeful to use the document as almost a law of the land. Only time can tell whether we'll stick with the document or create a better one and more updated one when the time comes. But it will always serve as a symbol of our land, for it will mark the state of a new country.
Okay. Well, what do you think the future of the colonies is at this point?
Only time will tell what the future will hold, but as of now, I guess I can say that the colonists should prepare to see a war. For I don't think Great Britain will be quite accepting in letting their prime real estate leave their grip just yet.
All right, thank you, Ben. I appreciate it. You heard it here first. Ben Franklin, after the signing of the Declaration of Independence. Back to you guys in the studio.
The document that Ben Franklin and Derek alluded to was the Declaration of Independence, written by Thomas Jefferson and adopted by the Second Continental Congress. This states the reasons the British colonies of North America sought independence in July of 1776. The Declaration opens with a preamble describing the document's necessity and explaining why the colonies have overthrown their ruler and chosen to take their place as a separate nation in the world. The preamble of the Declaration of Independence states, "All men are created equal, and that there are certain inalienable rights that governments should never violate. These rights include the right to liberty, life, and the pursuit of happiness. When a government fails to protect these rights, it is not only the right, but is also the duty of the people to overthrow that government. In its place, the people should establish a government that is destined to protect those rights. Governments are rarely overthrown and should not be overthrown for trivial reasons. In this case, a long history of abuses had led the colonists to overthrow the tyrannical government." The second area of the document outlines King George's specific abuses against the United States colony. The king interfered with the colonists' right to self-govern and for a fair judicial system. The king also instituted legislation that affected colonies without their consent. The legislation levied taxes on the colonists, required them to quarter British soldiers, removed their right to trial by jury, and prevented free trade. The king and parliament were also guilty of outright destruction of American life and property by refusing to protect the colony's borders, confiscating American ships at sea, and their hiring of foreign militias such as the Hessians. The third part of the Declaration of Independence talks about how the United States colonies attempted to reconcile with Britain. The colonial governments tried to reach a peaceful reconciliation of these differences with Great Britain, but they were continually ignored. Colonists who appealed to British citizens were similarly ignored, despite their shared common heritage and their just cause. After many peaceful attempts, the colonists had no choice but to declare their independence from Great Britain. The fourth and final section of the Declaration wraps up the document and outlines the powers of the new government. It stated that the new nation would be called the United States of America and would no longer have any connections with Great Britain. The new government also reserved the rights to levy war, make peace, make alliances with foreign nations, conduct trade, and enjoy the full rights of any other nation.
Well, thanks, Andrew. That was such an interesting story. It's ironic that you say that, because I actually have a copy of that document right here.
Where'd you get that?
I kind of stole it. And we're gonna go to a quick commercial break.
Is this you?
Man, I love swimming, but I hate getting cold and wet.
I have just the thing for you.
Really?
Introducing the Turtle Submarine. If you love swimming but don't like getting wet, the Turtle Sub is perfect for you. Made out of sturdy wood and composite metals, the Turtle Sub is perfect for your family events, romantic dates, and even storming the Redcoats garrison at Trenton. Let's see what our valued customers have to say about the Turtle Sub.
I love my Turtle Sub. It keeps me warm and dry.
I love my Turtle Sub. Brought my family out yesterday. We went out to Burlington Island. Actually got some tree tar and I had to patch up a leak on the Turtle Sub. It's all good though. Love it.
I actually bought my Turtle Sub last week, and since then I went bankrupt. My wife left me. I got syphilis. See? They love the Turtle Sub. And you will too. So don't wait. Ride your horse and carriage to your nearest store today to get your very own personally made Turtle Submarine.
Turtle Sub TM is not responsible for customers who drown, catch syphilis, accidentally blow up a submarine, kill a fish, crash into Boston Harbor, roll their Turtle Sub down a hill, or accidentally fall into water when putting the Turtle Sub in and getting attacked by flesh-eating dolphins. Prices and data rates may apply.
Man, that sounds swell.
And welcome back to ANN Morning News. Next up on the agenda, we have Derek Pensabenny live from Princeton, New Jersey, hoping to hear from General George Washington about his Army's movements. Now to you, Derek.
Thanks, Ma. We're here at the site of Washington's Crossing at 4:31 a.m. on December 26th. Thankfully, we have our super high-tech night vision cameras, so everything looks light out. As you all know, tonight marks a huge offensive planned by America's only George Washington in an attempt to attack the British garrison at Trenton. And he's actually here right now. An interview? Perfect. We're gonna get an interview. Be right back with you guys.
Thank you. Thank you. Good. Good?
All right. So Washington, ANN News here. Can I tell you what you're thinking right now?
Well, obviously behind me I have tons of troops ready to storm Trenton. As of right now, I'm making sure all is in order to ensure victory for the people of this great soon-to-be nation.
So Washington, what made you want to attack tonight, or morning rather, of all times?
Well, as you know, Christmas is a widely celebrated holiday, especially here in the colonies. Therefore, knowing this celebration was going to take place, I, along with my other high-ranked officers, realized that this attack could be the point in the war where the colonies begin to gain momentum. This attack, though it is a bit of a cheap shot because of the holiday, would be a pinnacle opportunity to attack with the element of surprise.
Very smart. I can see why this is a bold move by the Continental Army.
Naturally.
I see. So tell me, George. I feel like I can call you George because, you know, you and me are so much alike. With this attack being successful, how detrimental do you think this defeat could be for the Redcoats?
Well, obviously, this could destroy all momentum and morale the Redcoats have coming into this. However, tactically, this is not a horrible loss for them. The position they hold in Trenton is indeed one of their southernmost positions, but losing it would not push them back very much. Overall, I believe if we win this battle, that this would be a huge turning point for the colonies, as this can prove that to the world and to ourselves that we can indeed win this war and earn our independence.
Interesting. Very interesting. Now, so in your opinion, do you think it's possible for the colonies to win this truly revolutionary war?
Well, that's a good question. In my professional opinion, this battle tonight would basically solidify my confidence in the colonies. If we can prove that we can beat the Redcoats at their own game, who knows what more we can accomplish?
Indeed, George, indeed. Now, many citizens of the colonies believe the mother country has indeed been treating us fairly, giving us many benefits and rewarding us for being their colony where we cannot get anything anywhere else. What is your standpoint on this?
I think it's all depending on how tolerant a person is regarding the acts and unfair laws put upon the colonies by the British. Over the years, the acts by Britain have been increasingly drastic and extremely easy to see the unfairness that they've been showing towards us. Starting with the Proclamation Line of 1763 up until the present, where acts as such, the Stamp Act and the Intolerable Act, took effect. The British have been a horrible parent to their child, which is us, the American colonies, and therefore do not deserve to own these great people. these so-called loyalists need to open their eyes and suffer a reality check. Because if they believe Britain is treating us fairly, then they're delusional.
I must say, very heartfelt. Now, the cost of the war must be astronomical. How much is the war costing America, and how come?
I'm glad you asked, because this is an opportunity for viewers to realize the scale of this war and why we're fighting it. As of now, we are looking to spend about $15.6 million in wages for our troops. Though we are suffering an annual inflation rate of the American dollar of 4.3%. A big problem when attempting to stabilize the economy of a nation that's not even a nation yet. Today, we're looking at this war to cost about $93 million in total. However, we are not the only nation to be financially hit by this war. On the other side of the battlefield, Britain is also getting hit hard because of our boycotts of their goods and services, along with the cost of troops, supplies, and transportation. Great Britain is looking at an average debt of 12 million euros a year. By the end of this war, that should total to about 240 million euros of interest, or of debt plus interest.
Wow, this is one expensive war. It looks like I can see some troops beginning to march. So I'll let you go. Thank you so much for this interview, and good luck with your attack, Washington.
Thank you, Derek.
This is just in the A&N. Nathan Hale, who we talked about earlier in the show, has been officially announced hanged.
On the night of December 25th, when most men were celebrating the holiday, one man was not. That man was George Washington. Preceding December 25th of 1776, the Continental Army was taking heavy losses, not just in men, but in supplies and morale. Not many Continental soldiers were confident in the colony's ability to fight off a world superpower, and it showed on the battlefield. Battles were being lost very frequently, which was taking a toll on the war effort. Supply shortages were causing difficulty to keep up with the pounding attacks provided by the British forces. Due to the failure of this continued, General George Washington knew that he had to act in order to save the colonies. First, he considered attacking Mount Holly, where the southernmost British position was. But after he sent some of the men to gather intelligence among the man named Samuel Griffin, they realized that the attack would be too risky and not successful. However, Washington did order a small attack which became known as the Battle of Ironworks Hill. This battle, more of a diversion, pushed the troops in Bordentown down south enough to render them useless in providing an aid to the troops in Trenton, the target for Washington's next attack. Washington's planned attack at Trenton would be led by Washington himself, leading his group directly across the river and attacking the British troops head-on. A second column would cross more to the south in order to create a diversion. Finally, a third column would cross at Trenton Ferry and was tasked with holding the bridge to cut off the enemy's escape. After this attack had taken place, Washington and his forces planned to push northward and attack the Redcoat forces in Princeton, hoping to keep their momentum from the victory they had earned not long before. On the morning of December 25th, Washington ordered his army to prepare 3 days' worth of food and issued orders that every soldier be outfitted with fresh flints for their muskets. He was also somewhat worried by the intelligence reports that the British were planning their own crossing once the Delaware was frozen over. At 4 p.m., Washington's army turned out for this evening parade, where the troops were issued ammunition and even the officers and musicians were ordered to carry muskets. They were told that they were departing on a secret mission. Marching 8 abreast in close formations, and ordered to be as quiet as possible, they left the camp for McConkey's Ferry. Washington's plan required the crossing to begin as soon as it would be dark enough to conceal their movements on the river. But most of the troops did not reach the crossing point until about 6 p.m., about 90 minutes after sunset. The first crossing, led by Adam Stephen and George Washington, along with their troops, were ordered to form a sentry line around the crossing point in New Jersey and were to not let anyone through unless they knew the password, victory or death. The other columns crossed and the battle began. Having the element of surprise on their side, the Continental forces earned a victory at the cost of only 3 killed and 6 wounded. On the Hessian side, however, 22 were killed and 98 were wounded before they surrendered. Once they did raise the white flag, the American forces captured 1,000 prisoners and seized ammunition such as muskets, gunpowder, and artillery. Perhaps one of the most successful and important battles on the history of this continent, Washington's Crossing proved to be an extremely significant turning point in the Revolutionary War, giving the Continental forces traction in their fight against tyranny. It would be interesting to see what Washington and his army would do next.
Thank you for tuning in to ANN this morning. I'm Andrew.
I'm Matt, and from all of us here, thank you for watching. Have a good night.